You are now listening to the Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks podcast, brought to you by Solid.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks. Today, I have with me Nondas Virvidakis. Trying to say that 3 times fast. Welcome to the podcast, Nondas.
Thank you, Yoni. It's great to be here.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be speaking with people who are bald with a beard. Like me. I feel it's we're all part of but one big community.
Absolutely.
So, Nondas and I have met a while back. And it's always been great speaking with Nondas about AI and where things are going. But let's start with this, Nondas, if you don't mind giving a quick introduction of yourself for the audience here.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Yoni. So first of all, thanks for inviting me. I always enjoy speaking with you about these topics. So yeah, my background is product and analytics and data. I worked in a number of different companies, primarily in financial services, but I've been part of a startup, a growth stage startup for about 7 years. I was part of a great growth stage startup for about 7 years, managing professional services. So right now, I'm managing a team of product managers at UBS Wealth Management Americas, and we're building products, primarily AI capabilities for financial advisors here in the US. So yeah, that's a brief overview.
Cool. So people know that UBS is a bank, but what is wealth management? What does that mean?
Yeah, so wealth management means you have people who manage other people's money. Let me put it this way. But not only, I think wealth management is a little bit broader, right? So like it's not just managing your investments, it's managing your wealth more broadly. So you have people who need to understand their clients' needs and situation very intimately and try to help them increase their wealth, taking into consideration every aspect that impacts it, from personal situation, from taxes, from estate planning, like the whole spectrum of things. So what happens is financial advisors will engage with those clients. They'll try to understand what their objectives are, try to understand what their situation is, and build a plan in order to meet those objectives in the long particularity about wealth management in the US as compared to the rest of the world, because UBS is a global firm, is that financial advisors in the US are kind of entrepreneurs. They own their clientele. So like whenever a financial advisor comes or leaves the firm, they are attached to their clientele. So usually that means that they have a good amount of power and say, and what we build really influences their well-being, retention. It matters a lot to the firm, which is in contrast to a little bit what happens outside of the US, where financial advisors, or what we call kind of client advisors, are more kind of attached as employees to the firm. So you still have that risk of like taking some clients with them, but like it's not exactly the same. So the model is a little bit different, I would say, in the US as compared to other countries.
Okay. When you first said AI with wealth management, the first thing that comes to mind to me is ChatGPT managing my money and telling me what I should and should not buy, or maybe even connecting to the brokerage account and doing buys and sells and all that. Like that's the first thing that comes to mind. But when the relationships are owned by humans and it's the humans that carry them from place to place, they're not going to let you replace them with AI, right? And we can even talk about why maybe you shouldn't, and you should have a human in the loop managing your money. But if you're not replacing these wealth managers with AI, what are you doing with AI? Like, what's the thinking around that?
Yeah. So, the way that we think about this is that, AI is not going to replace the humans in this industry, but like people who use AI, will replace the people who don't use AI. And that's kind of the perspective that we take. The idea is that we want to give financial advisors tools that will help them have a competitive advantage against their peers in other firms, and help them manage their clients more effectively, more efficiently, and give them a higher level of service from quality and outcomes perspective. So that's kind of the high level idea. So the tooling that we provide is not it's not a replacement of the human, because at the end of the day, I think also I don't know how things are going to evolve in like 50 years, but like at least for now, I think the human touch is important, and have somebody who can empathize with you, understand your concerns, like, have a drink with or a coffee, I think makes a difference in the business that we're in. So yeah, I think the tools that we build are intended to help financial advisors do their job better.
Yeah. So it's a bit like in the medical world where, you still want doctors to have the real touch with you, as you're going through life's trials, but help doctors make better decisions and faster, et cetera. So if you think about here, is it just giving them ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot and saying, here, you've got something that's going to help you, or is it deeper than that?
Yeah, so I think it's a mix of things, right? Like it's a mix of things. Some of it is, deploying, generic tools that can help with productivity. So, like Microsoft Copilot as an example could be one of them. And I think these tools, in many situations can cover, a good chunk of the needs. But then you also need to have specialized tools that, solve very specific problems, with a higher quality. So like the way that I think about, the generic tools is that, they can get you, what I mentioned before, like the 80% of the quality that you need, maybe, depending on the use case that you have. But then there are situations where you can't rely on 80%. You need to go like much deeper. You need to have like certainty. Again, AI is not deterministic, but like as close as certain, to the outcome. So I think it's a mix of both, I would say.
Okay. Now, UBS has this big push around AI. I think just a few months ago, they appointed someone, hopefully I'm not butchering his name, Daniele Magazzini, which
Yeah,
is probably Italian,
yeah,
as the chief AI officer. So we see this a lot. Obviously, many companies now have a chief AI officer. And somebody, mentioned on LinkedIn, it's like having a chief AI officer today is like having a chief electricity officer 100 years ago. So what does it mean to have a chief AI officer?
yeah. I think first of all, having somebody in that seat demonstrates the importance that AI has for the firm, right? Like I think that's kind of the foundation here. So that's one thing. The second thing is, especially for a firm as big as we are, um, we need to make sure that, we we have um, we have a centralized function that can help with both driving initiatives around AI, but also being the connector between the different groups to ensure that, we're not building the same things like 20 times, right? So like I think that's another factor. The other thing that I think the firm has done pretty well for a while now, like since AI started becoming a thing, is they've invested both in tooling but also in building a culture around AI. Driving trainings, building communities of practice, helping people understand both from across the spectrum of the different things you need to understand about AI. Building knowledge around it, like from the ethics of it to the responsible use to the capabilities that you have. So I've seen a lot of initiatives around this. We have champions across the firm that are driving and trying to kind of multiply the effects and the use of AI. We have people that are designating themselves as pilot users for the products that we're building so they can, provide feedback and help us improve them. So overall, there's a very well-structured program around driving training as well as adoption, like around anything AI. But there's also investment in AI tools and infrastructure that will help us build more and faster and be if not the leader, but be like at least a fast follower in the space.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, the way it becomes a central pillar that's responsible for training, enablement, etc., tooling as well, a selection of
Yeah.
tools or at least platforms that can enable.
Yeah.
And then what happens is each part of the business, you have people there, they get trained on what tools are available, how to use them responsibly. You have a champion in each environment, and that champion kind of helps connect these AI concepts to what the business needs
Yeah.
are, and then drive that through and identify even the early users, etc. So it's like this central push, and then every part of the business drives it in the way that fits their business. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah. It's like a hub and spoke model, I would
Yeah.
say. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I think about that, so with the wealth management, basically, you guys think about, okay, these are the things that are going to help our wealth managers be more successful and
Correct.
be more competitive in the market versus other banks. And then, you think about the tools and then you build them on top of the concepts and technology provide essentially.
Correct. And we stay very close to our users. Like I'm leading a team of product managers. I think I mentioned this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Like both myself and my team are spending a good amount of time either in person in the field speaking with our users or remotely. And I also have someone in the team who's our head of AI engagement and adoption, and she's also gathering feedback, presenting. So like we're very close to our users. We have a very I would say iterative process. Like we build small, get feedback. Like it's a very agile approach whenever we're kind of building new ideas and new projects. So yeah, that's I would say that's kind of the approach that we have.
So that actually kind of leads me to the next phase of what I'd like to dig through. So you've been building, I know you've been there for a year and a half, give or take, leading this product team, and your employee who's just said who's very helpful there too. What have you learned over the last year and a half in terms of things that worked and things that should have worked but very much didn't?
Yeah.
What learnings can you share?
Look, first of all, I'm realizing there's a lot of excitement and anticipation for like how AI is going to kind of transform the work. So like there's a lot of there's good there's goodwill and attention from the users to actually like engage with the tools that we build. I think that helps whenever you're trying to kind of drive something new. I think in terms of like, so I'm thinking a little bit like to start with, I'm thinking about like the non-technical components first. Like I'm thinking about what are the things that work when it comes to like the definition of the problem, the like building the products and also driving adoption. I think as I mentioned before, like having like being close to your users is very important and has worked very well for us because the way that we do this, whatever we push out is relevant. It's not it's that like it's something that people can relate with. That's one thing. The other thing that we've learned is despite of that, you still need to do a lot of communication and training and repetition because the people that are in the field, like they're wired to sell. They're not wired to use technology, right? So so there's always a need to spend time with them, explain to them what are the benefits of the tool, build use cases, right? Like people are asking all the time, like, how are my peers using it? Like, what are other people doing that I'm not doing? So like we're spending a good amount of time and like understanding how people are using the tools that we build, creating, showcasing use cases, and kind of sharing them across the rest of their, the people. I talked about like the champion framework as well. So like, we will bring the champions together to share knowledge and learn and kind of disseminate this to their peers, like in the field, the people that they're kind of engaging with. So one of the things that I've learned is like, yes, you need to build great technology, but you also need to have like a good framework around it to like ensure that people are adopting. And it's not just about delivering, it's also about following up on what you actually deliver and kind of driving it home. So that's one thing. From a technology perspective, I think some of the things that we've learned, look, some things might seem simple, like at a glance, but like there's there can be complexity in implementation that you have to think about. You have to think about data, right? Like, do you have the right data to do what you need to build what you need to build? Like maybe the application that you want to build on top might not be that complex, but if you don't have the right data foundation, then it's difficult to actually deliver. You have to think about performance, like you have performance is another one. Evals, like, is the quality of the of the outcome what you expect. Have the right feedback loops to pick up any glitches if it's not what you expect. Having outlets for people to fall back to a more traditional process if what they're trying to do is not working. Yeah, there's a lot of things that somebody needs to kind of think about as we're building kind of those products.
Okay, so there's the organizational side, right? Champions, identifying champions. There's a desire, there's pull from people, but you need to train them and educate them, and the champions is a great way to go. And I've seen that also work in many other organizations where you've got the people who don't want to do AI at all, and then okay, you put them aside for a moment. You got the people who want to do AI but don't know how, and then you got the people who want to do AI and also are experimenting with this. You and I spoke before this meeting or before this recording, we spoke about how we find ourselves sitting on the laptop, just, burning through tokens and building things. And so people who are like that are more likely probably to become your champions.
Yeah.
Because they understand AI, they want AI, and then if they're in the business, so they understand the business, and then they connect the dots. That's probably a good way to identify champions. And then on the technical side, of course, there's the evals, providing feedback, fallback, and so forth. What did you think? Like, do you have a situation where you thought something would be true? So you maybe, I don't know, you thought people would pick up a certain capability that you built, or you thought people will want to do something, or you thought the technology will enable something, and then you discovered you were wrong. It didn't work out the way that you were planning for it to be. Was there anything like that came up, or was it all smooth sailing and
Yeah.
panned out the way you thought it would be?
Yeah. I don't think I've had a situation where, something that we've already built, kind of proved to not be, in the right direction. But I think like we do have things that are, in the works that, we're still confirming, like and validating our hypothesis, right? Like that, so I would say, I cannot go into detail of like what exactly the application looks like, unfortunately, but,
Top secret stuff.
top secret stuff, yeah. But what I'm thinking about is what I can tell you is that, like maybe an example is that we built something that we thought would be useful for like all the profiles of people that we have in the firm. And I would say like I would kind of solidify those profiles as financial advisors and their support team. Like these are the two kind of high level. I mean, there's more granularity in each of those categories, but these are the two big ones. And we expected that like a product might be relevant and like equally used by all of them, but it seems like it's falling towards one of the groups of people more, like that they seem to be using it more extensively. They provide more feedback. They're kind of coming back with questions and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's kind of one of the findings that we have, maybe in one of the tools that we're building currently.
So have you dissected why already? So there are these two, you aimed for two groups. One of them is using more than the other. So you had a hypothesis and the data sort of is up against that hypothesis. Have you investigated it?
Yeah.
Or not yet?
Yeah, I think the answer is like maybe the use cases that we have enabled, like this is a tool that can serve like a variety of use cases. Maybe the ones that we kind of prioritized and pushed through in the beginning were more, better suited for that population. I think that's kind of, so like we're expanding, like this is a tool, as I mentioned, that can do a lot of things. So like we're expanding those use cases to be able to serve, like both populations more, equally, I would say, not just one.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we experiment and we discover a lot of things as we go.
Yeah.
Something, it's a bit, just switching topics a bit, but it is quite related. When you think about what you can do at home, vibe coding, on your own laptop, on your personal time and resources versus what is possible in a large bank like UBS with all, the governance and regulation and so forth.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that gap? Like you at home, you're not constrained by anything, and at work you are, rightfully so. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a tough nut to crack, to be honest with you, Yoni. I think it's a tough nut to crack. But there are, there are ways that you can go about it, and I think that's kind of the approach that many like of similar firms and ourselves are kind of taking. So first of all, there are we talked about kind of publishing like company-wide tools, right? Like something like Copilot doesn't have too much complexity. Like everybody can use it as long as they do it responsibly. So I don't see a problem with using tools. Now, when it comes to building for yourself, that gets a little bit more tricky. So it has to be kind of happening in a more federated environment. So I think the right way to do it, and I'm not talking about UBS in particular, but like more broadly, I think is to make sure that you have controls. You give more freedom when it comes to things that impact yourself, and you're like a smaller, like the magnitude of impact that you have across the firm is smaller. So there's more freedom to kind of to do things for yourself, And when it comes to like building things that could impact other people and users, then you start putting controls in place like model risk management processes and other types of approval processes to kind of promote technology to other people. So I think it's tricky because you want to find the balance of like letting people innovate, come up with new ideas, drive things forward, but on the other hand, especially in a regulated environment, you want to make sure that you manage risk appropriately, because like one small mistake can have like a pretty significant impact outside. So it's a tough balance. I think everybody's trying to find what the right spot to be in is. But I think that's the way we're approaching it. Small, like if you have like a small magnitude, more freedom, but when you start kind of impacting other people and going broader, then more control.
Okay, so there's basically sort of levels of it, right? So if you're using it for yourself, less controls because there's less likelihood for problem. But as you're thinking about rolling it out further and further and further, there are more controls that need to be put in place, especially in such a regulated, large bank that needs to keep its name and brand and make sure that it's protecting its customers and so forth. So it's okay. That makes sense. There was something we talked about in the call prior. It was a bit around Microsoft Copilot, etc. So Microsoft Copilot launched obviously a couple years ago. They just shared stats recently where they had 15 million paid seats. So Microsoft 365 Copilot, they had 15 million paid seats, which is incredible if you think about it. It's larger than some countries, especially I think the country, well, first of all, the country I came from originally, but I think yours too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we're about 10 million. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's larger than the countries we were born and raised in, and that's the number of people that are are paying for it. And then if you look at the active users in 2025, it was about 30 million total active users. So it's a lot. It's still about 3% penetration. So it means they have a long way to go to penetrate. But in our conversation before, one of the things we talked about was, Microsoft is already there in many organizations.
Yeah.
They bring forth the Copilot, and there's a lot of value that can be extracted from it, even before you build all the stuff on top, right? In the conversation the past half hour or so, we talked about building things. But you said on the call, you can get a lot of value out of Copilot by using it correctly.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think, look, again, it's not just about Copilot. I think it's for any type of basic, Gen AI capability. I think the important thing is like thinking outside of the box of like all the different ways that you can use it. Like I always, whenever I'm trying to, like I'm about to do something on my computer, I'm trying to think like, could I do this faster, better, like with like a Gen AI tool. Again, it's like not just professional, but like personal life as well. I think the benefit that tools like Copilot or Gemini have is that they also have access to like your whole universe. Like on a personal level, like I work with with Google, so like all my life is on Google Calendar, Google Drive, Google Gemini and everything, and my professional life is on Copilot and everything. So like both of those tools, like I use them equally for different things. So every time I'm about to do something, I'm asking myself, like, can I do this better, faster, Copilot? So I'll give a few examples, like on the professional side, right? Like I'm coming, let's suppose I'm kind of, when I'm joining, let's say when I joined the team, right? And I wanted to gather feedback and ask people like what's working, what's not working, right? So I worked with Copilot to come up with a questionnaire, like what kind of questions would I want to ask to gather, like a good chunk of feedback. If I'm let's say trying to hire somebody, I build the job description myself, but then I pass it on, like I might pass it into Copilot and say, okay, help me write questions that will test the skills that I've kind of posted, that I've kind of written down. So like it can help me do that. If I'm, working to go to like we have internal conferences talking about AI, right? So like I can take past content, other speakers, how much time I need to, so like it can help me maybe write a speech or like come up with content for those. So anything you can imagine, like process data, like there's so many use cases that you can use it for. Similar things for, for the people in the field, like they also have a lot of ways that they can use it. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways. Like your imagination and your connectors, I think, are your
Are the
two your two limitations. You can overpass, I think, the connectors component. Like sometimes you can, with a little bit more manual process, you can download stuff and like upload it into the tool and like get around it. But I think these are the two main barriers.
and so when I have the similar approach, right? So every time I think to do something like, can AI do this? Should AI do this? Is it going to save me time? So for example, our board decks, most of the diagrams in there that are like reports of like pipeline and so forth, generated by AI. Same thing when I'm hiring people, helps me generate the questions that I'm going to ask or the prompt that I'm going to give them. There's a lot of places that bring it in. And then as a CEO, I tell my people, I want you to use AI as much as possible where relevant, right? Don't just
Yeah.
use AI for the sake of AI. And then they come up with very creative ways of using it. For example, now our product team manages all the requests for enhancements or new features. It all flows through AI, and then AI collects all the needed information and sometimes also asks the questions in response to make sure that we're getting the details. Now, I have that ability because I can come and push down and say I want everyone to use AI as much as possible. You're coming and you're managing a product team. Are you coming to your team and saying I want to see you guys use AI more? I want to see come up with creative ways and even maybe measure how much they use AI, or is it more a matter of just anyone who feels that they like to use it and they'll use it, and those who don't. Like,
Yeah.
how are you approaching that as that team's manager?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we're kind of starting to get a little bit more metrics driven on this. Like, I'm encouraging them. I think they should be, and we actually have tools that are product management specific. Like for AI tools that are product management specific. But I am encouraging them. We're showcasing. Some people are like using. We're trying to understand like what kind of tooling do we have available in the firm to help us also vibe code a little bit more ourselves, so that we can actually prototype and like build more on the product management side versus like throwing it all to the developers and the engineering side. So there's more happening, and I'm actually also actively working with some people to actually do some product management AI training as well. So like to kind of, when it comes to metrics, I do have metrics about like how much our team is using AI. Like I'm not in that mindset that I'm going to reprimand anybody for not doing it, but I'm definitely encouraging people, and I can get a feel of like what's going on. I actually can't see on an individual basis. I can see across my team like how much those tools are being used, and drive that more actively.
So you can see numbers and you can say, okay, my team is using tool X Y times a week, and it feels like I want to get to a higher number, so I'm going to try to drive the team that direction. Is that the thinking?
How can I encourage them to use more? Like again, I just want to be clear. This is something like very recent that I have access to this information, so I haven't like really acted upon this very. I haven't acted upon this yet, but at least now I can tell who are my, you know, not who, how many on a week by week basis, what is my like distribution between like non-users, power users, casual users, etc. So like I can get a feel of like how that trend is looking. So I'm looking at it directionally. I'm not looking at it, um, like to use this and go and kind of, chase people up, but I'm trying to understand like at least now, is our trend going in the right direction? Are people actually embracing these tools and using them? And that's kind of the,
Yeah, it's a hard thing to think about because what do you do with the reports? For example, we use Cursor, and you can see how many lines of code every developer generated using AI.
yeah.
So we have a couple of people on the leaderboard, and it's funny. We celebrate like, hey, this guy's a leader, and he's the leader. What does it actually mean? Because you obviously can ask Cursor to just generate code till the cows come home just to get on the leaderboard, but it doesn't mean you're generating any value for the company, maybe even negative value because the
Yeah.
tokens cost money. So I haven't been able to crack yet how do we use these measurements to understand how we can improve the team. It's not about shaming anyone. I'm obviously celebrating those that are, but I haven't found yet, and we have the reports from Cursor, we have reports from Google about how much people are using Gemini and all the Google Docs apps.
Yeah.
We use ChatGPT, so we have reports from there. But
What do
what do
you
you do with it other than like, oh, okay, this
Yeah,
guy generated this many lines. Like,
yeah.
what exactly do you do with it?
So I think that's a good question. I think the thing that we're doing when it comes to the usage of our products, right? Because that's a different, like a little bit different than the question that you asked before, is like we're trying to understand like what is the movement first of all. Like it's not just about are you using or are you not using. It's about like what is your change in behavior. So like are you like I don't know, like we push a new tool out and we try to see like who are the people that are, picking up, who are the people that are picking up and then eventually stop using it. So I think it's a little bit similar, like,
Yeah.
it's a different audience, but it's in a different tool, but I think it's the same approach. So we're trying to couple metrics with qualitative analysis. So like what we'll try to do is we'll try to segment our users, power users, etc., and understand what is the movement and then interview the people to understand like what is triggering that behavior first of all, like understand like what made you a power user, like what did you do with the tool and what made you drop off. You were using it for like 3 months actively and then one day you stopped using it, like what happened. Or somebody who didn't use it, right? Like you weren't using it and I don't know, like something happened and you're using it very actively. Was it marketing? Was it training? I don't know, maybe you just were cleaning your inbox and you found the invitation to try and use. So like we're trying to couple the metrics with qualitative analysis, structured qualitative analysis to understand what do we need, what's driving that behavior, what is the outcome of that behavior, and how can we adjust the way that we operate in order to influence it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's on the product side. So there's the own like productivity applications that your team uses, in which the
Yeah.
reports are nice, but we don't yet know what to do with. And then there's engagement with the products that you built to see who's using it, how are they using it, and we do that too. We actually report back to our customers who's using, how are they using our own product, because it helps them drive behavior in the way that they want to go.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that you can use the same approach for your people as well to
Yeah.
understand what's happening. In your case, like if you're asking about code, like maybe I would go and ask the top users, okay, like so what did you do with all that code that you're like, what was the outcome? Like, do you feel like was it productive? Like, what can other people learn from what you did? How can we encourage other people to do the same?
Yeah, so you're treating it as product like a manager for the internal usage,
Kind
basically.
of,
You're
yeah. I think
saying, look at it as a product manager and look at these people as using your product, not a product that you build, but a product that you decide to roll out, and you go and interview them just like you would in a normal product situation.
I think so. I mean, I think the part that you have less influence on if it's not your product is the functionality of the product itself, but everything else is kind of the same,
Yeah,
right? Adoption,
it's a good way to look at it.
training, everything. And maybe, depending on the product, if it's like a small company product that you're the vendor that is selling it to you is a small company, you can maybe even influence the roadmap there as well. So that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah, Solid is definitely much smaller than UBS for the moment.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, but a lot of similar challenges, I guess. And yeah, like I think that's one of the things with AI. I think it brings people and practitioners closer because like it's a new thing for all of us. So we're kind of dealing with similar challenges and
Yeah.
similar problems. Yeah.
We're going to go into the last phase of the episode in a second. It's going to be a little lightning round, but there's one thing that you said in the call, in the prep call, that made me laugh, and I keep thinking about it. So we're both at an age where we used to play in arcades, like arcade games, where you bring coins and you put them in and you play more, or even at the point where you had computer games, playing on your own computer at home. This thing about like you keep putting more coins when you're at home working on these AI little initiatives, personal projects. You keep putting more coins,
Yeah.
and then you feel like you're so into it that sometimes I think he said your wife came to you and would come to you and
Yeah.
be like, Nondas, we need to go.
Yeah.
Nondas, we need to go
Exactly.
somewhere or come sit with me. And they're like, yeah, just one more thing, just one thing. And I find the same situation. Like sometimes during the weekend, I'll work on something, and then Noah, my wife, comes in. She's like, Yoni, we need to go, or Yoni, let's do this. I'm like, yeah, just one more thing, and just one more prompt. Even to the situation where sometimes I take my laptop with me because I just need a prompt along the way. And yeah, you can do it through your phone. You can connect Cursor to your phone and do it there, but you get so addicted to it because there's this thing that does work for you, and it keeps responding to you, and it's addictive.
Yeah. It is. It is.
It's it's crazy like this.
It is. So look, I mean, I started using like this is kind of building stuff on Cloud Cowork and Cloud Code. Like I realized the level of power that these type of tools give us. Like I understand technology, but I'm not like a software developer, and these tools have given me like amazing power. Like I was able to like build things that are very like a range of usefulness, but like very interesting even from an infrastructure perspective. So like I don't know, like I've used this technology to build an asset aggregator because I have accounts both in Greece and in the US, and there's no aggregator that brings it all together. So like I try to build something like that, or from that type of stuff to I'm also like I enjoy connecting people, and people come to me to ask like, hey, I'm looking for I don't know like funding, or I'm looking to hire a co-founder. I'm hiring, or I'm trying to find a job. So like I try to create a networking database. So like I had Claude actually like pick all my network connections from LinkedIn and then scout information for them on the web and create like a database where I can ask it and say, okay, like Yoni is looking for an engineer, who could be a good fit for him, like that's that kind of stuff. So like I don't know, like building a bunch of different things, and I get hooked into it, like and then it kind of sucks you in. I and so yeah, like yeah, to your point, there are times where like my wife might come and try to like drag me from the ear. You gotta go out. We gotta go. Like they're waiting for us or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, just give me 5 more minutes. I'm just gonna finish.
One more prompt.
Yeah, one more prompt, and it's gonna come back. But yeah, I mean, look, I think it is addictive. I think there's a cost element to it, which you kind of touched upon as well. Like, and I think these guys are picking it up, and they're figuring out ways to maximize revenue from that addiction that we're just describing. I'm also like, as I'm using these tools, I'm also realizing that there's an element of like overthinking also. Like it's not like I think first of all we can improve the way that we use these tools to like manage our cost, but like the companies that are building them could also do something like that. Like I don't know if you've had the same situation, and like let me pass the question back to you. But I've like what I've realized is like Claude at times is overthinking, right? Like I'm reading, like I'm going through the reasoning that it has. It's like, well, it's like thinking about things, and then it's like, and then it's thinking something else, and it's so like first of all it's consuming tokens this way, and the second thing is it's going too far in the task that I have given to it without checking with me if it's the right direction. So like it might end up building something that's not in my liking. And if it's something that's at scale, like I gave you this example about the networking database, right? Like it produced an output across hundreds of my contacts that wasn't exactly what I wanted. So I would have to go back and like regenerate that, right? That generates, that creates cost, right? Like that's, that creates a lot of cost. So I was wondering if you've kind of seen, if
Yeah.
you've experienced the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like for example, at least when I use Cursor for coding, I actually put it on auto, and because they're trying to be cheap and save tokens, etc., they route it to a less capable model often,
Mm,
and so that saves on the tokens and on the time. But there are some situations where like, oh, it doesn't get it, and
yeah.
then you need to switch. Like for example, I actually had this last week. We had a board meeting. One of the diagrams it prepared looked terrible, and I told it, hey, look at the diagram you prepared. It looks like crap.
Yeah.
And there was a point where it's like, the user is clearly frustrated. Yeah, I'm frustrated. This is a terrible job that you're doing here.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like there's all the profanity. We now know that the cloud code actually measures how much profanity you use.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. I
Yeah,
haven't.
they care about it because it's an indicator for the user being frustrated.
Okay.
So yeah, it's like, user's clearly frustrated. I'm like, look at this thing. And it couldn't figure it out because I was using the smaller model. Then I switched to a much bigger, to the 4.7 model, etc. And it spent like 15 minutes on the task.
Yeah.
And it did a great job.
Yeah.
And so I have the reverse problem where sometimes, well, I'm using the smaller, cheaper models, for time and other purposes, but then sometimes these models hit a wall, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, I need the bigger one to solve it.
Yeah.
But again, you need to make the decision. And one of the things that were annoying me is that at no point did Cursor be like, okay, clearly the
Yeah.
model I chose is not doing a good enough job, and the user's getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And his wife is pissed off at him because he's sitting on the laptop prompting this thing. I should pick the bigger model now to solve it.
Or if I'm not getting somewhere, let me ask for guidance, which I think is
Yeah.
like sometimes like these models, I think I'm thinking about it as like a junior member in the team,
Yeah.
right? Like you gotta like you have to coach people to like of course be as independent as they can, but at the same time know when they need to come for help and guidance before they make decisions that are going to take them down a rabbit hole. So like I think that's a way to approach. That's the way I'm dealing with this. I'm like saying, like don't go that far down the line. Check with me before you start producing this at scale, so that we can confirm that. Like do this for like 3 profiles. Let's look at the outcome for 3 profiles, and then go nuts and produce for everybody.
Yeah. So basically, it's your fault that it's going down those paths, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
If you would have prompted it better, then
it's both. I guess it's both.
Okay, so quick lightning round. I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Each question, try to answer as fast as you can, and then explain your answer.
Yeah.
And I probably know the answer for one of these at least.
Okay.
AI tool you can't live without.
Yeah, I mean Gemini right now. I'm using it a lot for like a bunch of personal life things that are going on. So yeah.
Do you feel Gemini got better over the last year because they had this massive push, the code red, and
For
people
sure.
said they overtook ChatGPT in some capabilities. Do you feel that using it?
It's improved a lot. But like I think I use different tools for different use cases. Right? Like I'm not building on the Google ecosystem. I'm building on Claude. But for like my personal life things, I'm using Gemini. And I think the nuance here is like I've decided to invest in, if there is anybody that has solved this, I've decided to invest in one tool because I like the fact that it knows me. So we can go back to like our previous conversations,
Yeah,
and
memory.
yeah, and pick up other stuff. So like it can combine context from previous conversation. That's I think very helpful. So Gemini, because like whatever personal, it has my history, it understands my style, the way I wanna, and yeah, I think it's improved a lot. Like in the beginning, I was trying, like working on ChatGPT, and I think Gemini was like falling behind. Now I think it's like it's picked up a lot.
Okay. An AI myth you'd bust in one sentence.
An AI myth I'd bust in one sense. Oh man, I think this is the one that we had talked about, and I'm trying to remember what it might be. I think one AI myth that I'm thinking about is like people sometimes feel uncomfortable talking about having used AI to kind of come to an outcome. Like I see people, like not wanting to share that this is an AI outcome because people will think that they didn't work hard enough or they didn't do, and I think that's a myth, that needs to get busted. Like that's why these tools are there to help us be more productive, and you shouldn't feel, I mean, I'm not talking about plagiarism if you have to write an article,
Oh, yeah.
like but like like yeah, use those technologies. I mean that's why they're there. So like I don't think anybody's going to like look down on people who are using those technologies to be better, efficient, so
I
that's
like that.
that's one thing. Yeah.
Somewhat relatedly, I noticed recently that people who lose weight with the help of, Wegovy, the GLP type medicine, they feel ashamed to say that they used it.
Mm.
And, they used it. It's fine.
You
I
got
mean, you can
an
talk
outcome.
about the medical aspects of it, but, you know, it's okay to share. Like, AI is not cheating. GLP-1 is not cheating. Yes,
Yeah.
GLP-1, you need to eat healthy and go to the gym and all that. And with AI, you need to put in the effort. You can't just, if you're submitting whatever AI just produced, then yeah,
Yeah.
that's not good. But it's funny how people are ashamed that they're using all of these new technologies and capabilities.
Yeah.
Hopefully, over time, they become, it's fine. You can say,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm using GLP-1, and it's okay.
There's no stigma. Yeah. Why not? That's why it's there, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's there
Yeah.
to help.
Exactly.
Okay, last thing. One prediction for AI in the next 5 years.
One prediction for AI in the next 5 years. I think, I think that, and it's a little bit of a conditional prediction, I would say. And the condition is the following. I talked about this earlier. I think we need to invest more on the APIs and connectivities between the different applications. And if that happens, I think AI is like really going to take off. Because as I mentioned before, the limit is your imagination and what you can connect to and kind of get stuff done. So I think APIs and connectivity will be huge. So I expect there will be a lot of investment there. And with that assumption, I think we're going to kind of see transformation in the way that we do a lot of things in our day to day.
I agree. I'm hoping for more and more of those connectivity connectors.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we're at the end of our episode. So for those listening or viewing this, remember to like, subscribe, thumbs up, whatever the platform you're on supports. Nondas, thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today. We'll see the audience next time.
Awesome.
Thank you, Nondas.
Johnny, thank you so
Bye.
much. Really appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.